Hello, and thank you for watching and being interested in the bite-sized training Introduction to AI Fluency in Education. We're going to review generative AI and large language models, as well as discuss what is AI literacy. Is AI literacy important? What is included in AI literacy? And what happens when AI goes wrong, including deepfakes, security considerations, and some Q&A. So, generative AI and large language models are systems capable of generating new content based on inputs and prompts. So, they often utilize deep learning techniques. And this is the information, the AI tools that are able to actually create new content based on the prompts and the data sets that they have been trained on. So, some of the most common ones that you see here is ChatGPT 3.5 as well as Dolly. So these are both the open AI tools that you probably have heard and brought you to this training. Gemini is the Google AI, and it actually is designed to generate poetry as well as artistic content. Google also has Vlogger, has an AI tool for an image to talking video. So you can actually take an image of a person and make it into a talking video. Bing and Copilot is Microsoft's AI models, and they're actually really used in integrated with Office 365 as well as Microsoft Edge. And Claude is another example of a tool that processes a large lot amount of information. They actually are continuously improving this tool, and it's picking up speed in the education realm. So, what is digital fluency? So, digital fluency is the ability to discover, evaluate, and use information technology effectively and ethically. So, this is how we know what information in the digital world on websites, on articles that we're reading that are accurate. So, it comes with three different subheadings. So, there's digital capabilities. So, this is being able to digitally adapt and innovate, confidentially choose and use digital tools to learn, create, and share. So, this is how you know what tools to use for what process. There's also the digital principles. So, this is the ethical, being respectful, as well as a responsible digital citizen. This is making sure that you're using these tools ethically, respectfully, and responsibly. And then there's digital literacy. So this is being discerning and critical. So able to locate, understand, organize, evaluate, and adapt digital content. So this is how you use the content and being able to understand how you use the content in different settings. So how does digital fluency and AI work together? So digital fluency gives us the tools to search, evaluate, and manage the volume of information to which we are exposed. AI uses algorithmically powered technologies and understand generally how they produce the answer. So you understand basically if you put this information into an AI tool, it will spit out this information. And you understand the machine and data behind the AI. So you don't just use the tool just willy-nilly, but you understand the machine learning and as well as the data behind the actual AI tool. AI fluency is a step above digital literacy and digital fluency. So, AI fluency implies that there's a seamless integration of AI tools into daily tasks, solving complex and challenges as fostering innovative and unprecedented ways. So, this is being able to use AI tools in your everyday life, in your daily life, as well as your teaching and learning. What's really interesting is this is actually creating a new digital divide. So the original digital divide was those that used technology in their teaching and those that did not. Now we're actually seeing a new digital divide of those who are fluent in AI and utilizing it in their teaching and those who are not. So it's going to be very interesting to see in the next year, 2 years, 5 years down the road to see where these tools are going to land and where this digital divide and how grand this digital divide is going to be. So why is AI fluency important? So what's really interesting is the Pew Research actually did a survey where they asked 10,000 adults which of the six examples of technology they thought were powered by AI. These tools included smartwatches, chatbots, security cameras, and email services. What's crazy, what's like very eye-opening is that only 30% of those surveyed knew AI powered all six examples. This to me shows that there's a lot of people who are using a lot of AI tools that actually do not understand that the AI is powering that tool. What's interesting is the same study found that only 27% of Americans say they interact with AI at least several times a day. But we know based on the amount of technology that uses AI, like smartphones and smartwatches, the number is likely to be higher. Especially, I read a study that 46% of Americans have a smartwatch. Well, if 46% of Americans have a smartwatch, and we've already established that smartwatch is powered by AI, that means that this number is much larger than is expected or and is known. IBM actually did a study also in 2022 that found 35% of organizations reported that they were looking into artificial intelligence technology, and 42% said they were looking into AI and its benefits. I imagine the last 2 years that this has skyrocketed because of the impact that artificial intelligence technology has had on the business world, as well as marketing and sales, that it's just made the jobs efficient and the administrative components more efficient, which we all know businesses like to save money and make money. So if they can find a tool that does both, perfect. So there are some opportunities of when AI goes wrong because AI is not perfect. And that is something that we always have to make sure that we understand is that AI is created by humans, so it is not perfect. So there was an attorney, I believe in New York, that used ChatGPT to find prior cases to support a case filed by an employee for injuries he sustained in 2019. He did not double check his work. He did not double check what ChatGPT or this open AI generative chatbot created. And it actually gave him a hallucinated response, which means it had a lot of wrong information. And at least six of the cases submitted in the brief did not exist at all. There was a document filed in May of 2023, I believe, and the judge noted that the cases submitted by Schwartz included false names and docket numbers, along with bogus internal citations and quotes. So ChatGPT gave him a hallucinated response. It was not accurate, and unfortunately, he may actually lose his license to teach law because of, or just to practice law because of this. Another example of when AI goes wrong is Zoom AI. Zoom actually has an AI companion that empowers you to increase productivity, improve team effectiveness, enhance your skills. One of the really cool things about this is it actually does allow you to summarize meetings in chat threads, and it brainstorm creativity and much more. So it's really cool. My team is starting to test this out to see how, how we could use this and how it can impact the New York tech community in a positive note. And so we turned it on in one of our meetings, and it came back. One of the last sentences it wrote in its summary was Emily brought up the topic of nuclear weapons, but the relevance to the discussion was not clear. So I could tell you that Emily did not discuss nuclear weapons. I mean, she had a cold that day, so maybe that was what was impacting the summary and why the a Zoom AI companion thought she might have been saying it, but it's one of those things that it showed us that we need to still be very mindful that AI is not accurate and it still needs a human touch. One of the biggest concerns right now with AI, other than students using it in nefarious ways, is deepfakes. Now, deepfakes are falsified media where a person in an existing image or video is replaced with someone else's likeness using artificial neural networks. So this is definitely deep learning algorithms that analyze existing media to learn patterns and recreate facial expressions, movements, and speech. So this is actually a really cool technology. And it can be used for simple purposes. One of the best examples I have is there's a David Beckham commercial where he's in the commercial, he starts off speaking in English, and they actually use AI so he can speak 9 separate languages. And that's a good use of this tool that, it's for marketing purposes. I imagine that David Beckham might know a few languages, but he might not know all 9. So it's those type of benign purposes like entertainment that could be beneficial, but it also posed significant risks in spreading misinformation and damaging reputations. There's also been cases where a deep fake video of a board of trustees saying that the company was losing so much money and they were in they're in really big trouble. And I believe that their stock prices crashed like by $15 million overnight once this deep fake got posted. So it can have a significant risk with people as well as celebrities and businesses, deep fakes. And one of the things that we also have to think about is the deep fakes with the videos altering politicians' speeches or celebrities' appearances. This is really important and can be potentially scary because politicians need to be trusted that what we're seeing is what they're actually saying. And unfortunately, this raises concerns about authenticity of visual content and challenges of trustworthiness because we're not 100% sure if the politician or the celebrity actually said the statement that they did. So, how to spot a deep fake? So, you can have irregular lighting as well as odd reflections, small details out of place, as well as objects' edges flickering. So, it looks like it's a little bit edited. There's also inconsistent color or shading and out of phase lip syncing. So there's definitely some tools and some ways that you could decide whether or not this is actually a deep fake, which this is where digital literacy, fluency, and AI literacy and fluency comes into play. Because you have to take a step back and be like, what am I looking at? Am I looking at something that is real? One of the things that we want to be very mindful of is the information that we're putting into the AI tools. So we do have at New York Tech, we do have a data classification matrix, which is a really great tool to discuss what is public data, restricted data, as well as confidential data. So public data is press releases, course information, and research publications. So this is data that you could probably find elsewhere on the interwebs as well as Google and on our website. And then there's confidential data. So confidential data is data protected by the state or federal privacy regulations. So you can think about this as HIPAA and FERPA, as well as data protected by confidential agreements. So this is social security numbers, maybe home addresses, additional data information. And you never want to put this information into an AI tool because that allows a security risk and then allows other people's information to be sent elsewhere and used on the dark web. Restricted data is all institutional data that is not explicitly classified as confidential or public, but should be treated as restricted data. So this is the gray area of our data, right? So we want to take a step back and think about the purpose of utilizing this AI tool with this data. Um, so this data we'll go through this a little bit further, but this data you may have to actually scrub of any identifier information as well as make it more anonymous in order for it to be used in a AI tool. Or you may want to not even include this type of data in an AI tool even after removing all of the identifiers that you can. So there's a data privacy paradigm. So the Chat GPT and other our large language models are trained on data sets from the public data as well as user prompts. So the large language models learn from user interactions, which magnifying the risk of leaked information being used for nefarious reasons. So what you're putting into the tool is learning from. One of the core challenges posed by generative AI right now is unlike conventional applications, large language models have no delete button from the consumer side. The delete button comes from the application and the software developer side only. There's also no straightforward mechanism to unlearn specific information and no equivalent to deleting a row in your database's user table. So if you thought you cleaned and scrubbed your data, and then all of a sudden you see that you put people's username and passwords in still were in there, there's no way of saying, oh, just kidding, I want you to delete just those informations. So it's very important to be very mindful of what data that you're actually putting into these softwares because we do not want to have any risk issues or any leaked information getting tied back to the use of this tool. One of the things that you can do is you can actually ask the software companies for a privacy statement or how do they use their tools. We'll give you some questions at the end to ask them. But this is an example of one that we received when I went to the software company and said, "Hey, talk to me about your data retention for your tool." And it says our AI, developed and maintained by OpenAI, so that is the tool that created ChatGPT, does not retain personal information from users' interactions. Perfect. It does not retain it. It's not being kept on a cloud server, on a actual server, or somebody's not writing it down and throwing it into a file cabinet. It also says that in line with privacy and data protection best practices, the information is provided during interactions is processed to generate responses and is not stored after the conversation ends. So once again, they're not retaining any personal information and they're not storing the conversation after it ends. Perfect. So we prioritize our user privacy, ensuring that conversations are confidential and not used for any purpose beyond providing immediate responses. Great. So now they're showing us that their tool is not learning from our conversations. And they say our commitment to privacy is reflected in adherence to strict data protection standards, including the compliance with relevant regulations such as the GDPR, which is the European Union privacy laws, and the CCPA, which is the California privacy laws, to safeguard user information effectively. So when I read this privacy statement, I see that they do not retain the information, personal information from user interactions. They do not store any information after the conversation ends. The conversations are confidential and not used for any purposes beyond providing immediate responses. So they're not selling the data, they're not training their system on the data. And they're also following the GDPR and CCPA regulations, which is great. So this tool sounds safe. So some key security risks that we want to make sure that we review is that there's the data retention and misuse component. So this is when personal information is shared in a chat, such as addresses or phone numbers, and they could be retained and potentially assessed and used inappropriately due to inefficient deletion policies. So if you have some personal information in there, you put it into the chat, into the AI tool, it may get reused in nefarious ways. There's also the proprietary information leakage. So if you're working on a project and you have working with a confidential information or proprietary code, you do not want to put those into an AI tool because that allows information to be leaked and could be exploited by a competitor to gain a market advantage. But it could also just be another security risk that we do not want to have in there. There's also the data privacy regulations. So we referenced two data privacy regulations in the previous slide with the European Union as well as California, but information shared with a large language model hosted in a different legal jurisdiction might inadvertently violate laws about international data transfers. So you also want to be mindful of where the tools are being stored and created. So how to use AI safely? So you want to be mindful of the personal information. So you don't want to have a lot of personal information out there. And you also want to understand the privacy settings. So that's discussing with and asking the software company exactly what the privacy settings are. You don't want to overshare. So this reminds me of when we first got Facebook and everybody was putting their first and last name, their maiden names, where they went to high school, what year did they graduate from high school, where are they checking in, where are they going, where are they going to college, where do they work? And we were just providing a lot of information on social media when it first started. And I feel like a lot of people are starting to scale that back. And that's really what we want with AI is you do not want to overshare. Anonymize what you can. You also want to think critically and you want to be mindful of understanding the tools that we're using and know that AI is not perfect. So it does still need that human touch and human capability. You want to report any inappropriate content. So if the AI tool is providing you with inappropriate content or some hallucinated responses, you want to report that to the software company because that can help them deter their tool and retrain their tool because there might be something wrong with it. You also want to be cautious of AI generated messages. So this is messages that you receive that you did not go above and beyond to ask it any questions. You should always be the one that's prompting AI to provide the response. AI should not be reaching out to you first. You also don't want to solely rely on AI. Like I said, AI is not perfect. It's created by humans. There's unconscious bias. There's blind spots in the data sets. There's always the issues with prompt engineering that you might not be getting the best prompt. You might be getting hallucinated answers. So you do not want to solely rely on AI. It could be a really great rough draft, but it should not be your final draft. And you also want to stay informed. So staying informed means taking trainings, learning about what is going on in your industry and your field with AI tools, and staying in the know. And that's something that the New York Tech community, as well as ATS, is trying to do for you, is to ensure that you're staying informed and have these opportunities for professional and personal development, as well as fully understanding the tools that are available to you. So a couple more ways that you can secure your digital footprint is you can use anonymization techniques. So before submitting the text for grammar checking, you want to anonymize or alter names, locations, and identifiable details within the document. So you want to make sure that it does not know a lot of information about you, but it knows enough to be able to provide you a response. You want to use hypothetical scenarios or anonymize the content to avoid a context to avoid revealing specific strategies or technologies. You do not need to have a very specific example. You can actually use hypothetical scenarios as well. You want to understand and leverage the privacy policies. So this is where you want to review and understand the updates and the privacy policies of large language model providers. Ask the service provider about the data retention and deletion practices to assess the security of your data. So you saw that I did that with a sample privacy statement, but you want to make sure that you understand fully where your data is going. You can also seek secure alternatives. So for sensitive discussions, opt for platforms that offer end-to-end encryption to ensure that conversations remain confidential. There also are opportunities for you to examine the free version versus the paid version um, of a tool because sometimes the paid version can provide more of a secure uh, encryption and secure alternate to the free version. So that's something that you may want to also examine is okay, how do they secure my data? How am I secure with the free version of this tool versus the paid version of the tool? And if you're going to be using the tool a lot, you might as well go with the paid version to keep you safe. Speaking of keeping you safe, so New York Tech, we are trying to keep you safe. So we're currently developing and vetting a process for the use of AI tools. ATS does not currently support the AI functions of these tools, but once they have been vetted, we are here to help. One of the great examples of this is that there's a lot of Office 365 AI tools in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel that we are actually going to be doing trainings on. You want to use the tools at your own risk. So you want to anonymize your prompts when possible. Also, you want to use your personal email address to create the accounts if necessary for these tools. The reason being is your NYIT is actually a way to as a self-identifier so that the tool actually knows that someone who works or goes to school at NYIT is using the tool. Whereas if you use your Gmail address, it's just another person using Gmail. And you also want to see how long the apps keep your info and what do they do with it. So there are some really great alternatives out there for the keeping you safe.